Detroit Lions will rise. With a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. In the city, where the road meets the night, the Lions charge, ready for the fight. Noble hearts and steadfast pride. Detroit spirit, we wear it white. Feel the drive, hear the crowds embrace. Rocked on, Detroit Lions will rise. Rocked on, Detroit Lions will rise. With a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. With every game, we rise and unite. Feeling the passion igniting the light. Through highs and lows, we'll stand as one. A legacy, a tale that's just begun. Together we roar. Together we grow. Rocked on, Detroit Lions will rise. With a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. So let's lift our voices. Let's turn it up loud. For the love of the Lions, we'll always be proud.
Well, good morning. It is not your typical morning after a Sunday victory for your Detroit Lions, but we're going to be talking about what happened last week, Thursday, and good morning to everybody. So it is the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is Monday morning. It is December 9th. Man, we are only 16 days away from Christmas, and that just tells you how quickly this season has come, and it's fleeting away from us. Every week, it's just getting closer and closer to the end. So do us a few favors here this morning. Number one, let's smash that like button so we can get ads off as quickly as possible. Number two, if you're new to listening or watching this morning, smash the subscribe button as well and turn on notifications. We're just a few more away from giving away another mini helmet, another signed mini helmet by Panay Sewell or Chris Spielman. So if you guys are signed up and subscribed to the channel, you get an opportunity to win. We are almost to 7,000, and we have 3,000 more to go to get to our annual goal this season, which is 10,000 subscribers. Before we kind of break it all down, again, please smash the like button. Let's get these ads off for you guys this morning, and let's get it rolling. Good morning, Eric. How you doing this morning?
Fantastic, man. I'm still in my glory.
I told you it was going to be a tough game, man. Told you.
Yeah, but what did we say to each other? I don't remember if it was I said it to you or you said it to me when we were standing up on top that Jake Bates was going to kick a game-winning field goal.
You said it. Like, you're the one that called it. I think you called it last week on the show.
And you're like, man, wouldn't that be fantastic?
Yep. And it happened.
It friggin' happened.
Yep. Love it. 2 in a row for Jake.
Dude, I'm still like shaken from this game. Like, it's everything and anything I wanted it to be. I absolutely love it from the beginning to the end. I have no complaints. I loved it. Awesome game.
I don't like the cardiac cats.
No, me neither. I don't like the heart attack games. But did you ever once in that game, did you ever have this feeling of despair in your gut? I didn't.
No, I mean, I had a Packer right behind me, and
I had a whole group of them.
And a fight almost broke out with one of the guys in front of me. They were kind of jawing at each other. So I was kind of dealing with that for, 5-10 minutes. And
oh, Jesus.
And it's like, it's kind of taking your attention away from the game, but we smoothed it all out. It was just, the game was on the line, and Lions fans were feeling it. And you could feel there was some energy I feel in the air that it's like, man, this is going to come down to it. And the way these refs have been, we just don't know what they're going to huddle up, again and do or call. And some weird calls, some phantom calls, both ways. but at the end of the day, I am sick and tired of seeing Packers fans make excuses. And it's kind of odd, right? I mean, we were that fan base, still are to a degree, where you kind of feel like we're the ones that don't get the benefit from the refs. And we've always been that team that is getting screwed by some rule or a new rule getting made up. And if any team has anything to say at all about refs interjecting into a game and ruining opportunities and big wins or big moments for the Lions or for any team, it's the Lions. And I mean, just look at the rule changes. I mean, there's several rule changes. And I'm not going to get into all those this morning because I'm already off topic, but yeah, it's just, I'm sick of seeing it. Look, a loss is a loss is a loss. Dan Campbell has come in and kicked the Packers' ass since he's been the coach. He's lost one game. And until you can beat Dan, I mean, I don't even know how much of this other stuff that we're going to talk about being reckless and kind of this national attention now that's kind of targeted at Dan Campbell. And we'll get into it here in just a moment, but I feel it's warranted to a degree because I feel some of these pundits, media members, Lions fans are like, man, they're so close. And we've been waiting for the Lions to do this. Don't ruin it, Dan. Just don't ruin it. I feel like that's kind of the energy surrounding that. And we'll talk about it in a few moments. But let's not forget today is Multi-Mitt Mondays. So we need to come up with a unique way of giving away some Multi-Mitt Mondays by C3 Mitts. Better the Hunt Technologies. This is the crossbow mitt. This is the rifle shotgun mitt. And then I have some multi-mitts down here. But don't let your cold hands get you out of the woods early when you guys are out there hunting. You guys practice all season long. Use what works, and that is C3 mitts. These gloves will keep your hands warm. There's a little insert inside every mitt that you can put one of them little hand warmers in there. It goes right into a pouch. Will keep your hands toasty warm, and then you can slip them out real easy to do whatever you need to do. So get your hands inside some multi-mitts today. Visit c3mitts.com. Right now, they're doing a 2 for $75, and then you're also going to get a free mitt, a free multi-mitt with your purchase, which you kind of need, right? You've got the one for one end of your your method of hunting, right? I have to be careful what I say. And then your other hand that would stay warm, up against your pocket or whatever. They have these, most of them have straps in that you can put it on your wrist or click it to your belt or whatever you want to do. But get your hands in C3 mitts today. We're going to give some away today. So first, let's talk about this. 281 members of this channel. You guys are phenomenal. Wow. And a lot of that work is because of Trace and others, right? But Trace has really done an excellent job. Not only donating to the channel, to Rock Down Cancer Foundation, but giving people an opportunity. She's basically giving Christmas gifts to everybody, people she doesn't even know, and bringing them into the channel. So 281 members is huge. And if you guys want to keep your membership, you just got to let YouTube know your debit card information or whatever before that 30-day trial is up, and you'll maintain a membership. Tomorrow night, we'll be redoing our tape reviews, game reviews. We're going to do Packers and Bears since we missed the Bears, and get into it tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So all members will be invited, give you guys an opportunity to see what we do behind the scenes. Any quick notes from you before we dive into NFC North news?
No, I think I'm good.
You're good. All right. So first, I want to start off with some NFC North news. Minnesota. Man, that game, I did a live stream yesterday. We were kind of going back and forth between Minnesota and the Eagles. And both games looked like they were going to help out the Lions for a little bit. It was close. Falcons were keeping it close. Panthers were surprising the hell out of everybody. And then the fourth quarter happened. So Minnesota just keeps on winning. Like I said, the game was fairly close until the fourth quarter, where then they just put up 21 unanswered points to win the game 42-21. The Falcons defense, man, they just collapsed, and they let Addison and Jefferson just go off. The Vikings moved to 11-2 on the season and a game and a half behind the Lions. That's 1.5 games behind the Lions. There are a ton of scenarios that can play out between now and the end of the season for who wins the NFC North crown. And I'm not going to go into all of those, but it's this simple to me. If the Lions win 3 games, it is over before week 18. If the Lions lose week 18 and tie records with the Vikings, the Lions own the common game opponent versus the Rams. and remain NFC North champs. It's that simple for me. The Lions just need to keep on winning. Sam Darnold is playing at such an elite level, and I think I might be the only one that said that Sam Darnold was going to play at an elite level this season in the preseason. And I saw it coming. I love everything about Sam Darnold. I would have loved to have had him on the Lions as a backup quarterback. I felt that strongly about what he could do in a new situation, and he's proven it right now. If you want, if you want good play from a quarterback, you just put him into a different situation at some point, because we've seen it, right? We've seen it with Justin Fields. He moved on and he started playing well. And then obviously Pittsburgh made their change. The Bears are still falling flat on their face. But there's a common theme that's happening right now with the Vikings. And it's really started with Byron Murphy. He's really running his mouth right now about the Lions. And he's kind of sick of hearing about the Lions. So I pulled up this article from the Viking Age. And it says the Vikings defender, Byron Murphy, sends a message to the Lions obsessed NFL after week 14. So he thinks that the NFL is obsessed with the Lions. Well, I mean, why wouldn't you be? How many games have we won in a row now, Eric? 11? 11. Of course you should be talking about the Lions. There's
also a video of this too.
Oh, really? I didn't see the video. But
video of him talking.
Yeah, so after demolishing the Atlanta Falcons last night, I'm going to read this article. By 21 points, the Vikings improved their record to 11-2 on the season, and they're right in the hunt for the top seed in the NFC behind the Lions. With a 12-1 record, the Lions have earned plenty of attention from the national media this year, and rightfully so. But after this team's dominating victory this weekend against the Falcons, I mean, come on, their defense is not that great. Cornerback Byron Murphy shared with NFL media's Tom Pelissero how he wants people to start talking more about the Vikings moving forward. I'm just going to say this before I read his quote. If you want people to talk about you, then do something, right? Do something on the field. They're winning games, but I think that people kind of consider the Vikings as frauds right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions went into their home, all sorts of beat up, and had a come from behind victory, won by 2 points. So for me, it's you've got to beat the best, to be the best, right? And you haven't beat the best yet. Here's his quote. Y'all need to start talking about us. We're tired of the Detroit talk. We're going to get that week 18 game eventually, but right now we're just focused on every single Sunday and we'll see them soon. But right now, talk about the Vikings because we're on one right now. Well, you know what, Byron Murphy? I'm sorry, you are on one. I think that you're a little bit crazy to even bring this kind of crap up. If you've got to ask for people to talk about you, then that's kind of a problem. I think that the Lions are just winning the hearts and minds over of everybody in the NFL, including all different fan bases. We're kind of the new team, the brand new Lions, but we're like the new team that everybody loves and cherishes right now. We've been down for so long and kicked so many times that when you're finally doing the right things and you're winning a lot of ball games and you got a head coach that is, I don't know if inflammatory is the right word, but he just does just everything in his power to be a non-traditional football coach. That's garnering the attention of everybody. So for me, you got to beat the best to be the best. And week 18 is probably not going to matter, Byron. I'm sorry. If the Lions win the next few games, it's not going to matter on week 18. So what are your thoughts and words here for Byron Murphy?
Well, just be better. That's it. You can't force people to talk about you. You can't force some false narrative. The Lions are just better and everyone sees it. The Lions have 183 point differential. The Vikings, I don't even think are at 100 points yet. So it's not even close. You can tell which teams are good and which teams aren't. And has Brian Flores ever beat the Lions?
I don't know.
Kevin O'Connell's only beat us a couple times. They're 0-3 or 0-4 the last 4 times we played them. I know they've lost the last 3 because we swept them last year and we beat them this year. They definitely need to get every win all the way through, and I'm pretty sure they got a couple tough games coming up here.
Yeah, I want to echo the sentiment here of Carlton Davis. So I think that between Carlton Davis and Kirby Joseph, they've kind of sent the message already to every other team. You know, when Carlton said, if people have a problem with what we're doing or complaining about it, then they can just come out here and play better football. It's that simple. You know, and the same thing with Kirby. You know, Kirby had said, if you're not coming ready to win, then you're going to get your, you know what, whooped, like for real. So keep talking, Byron, because that just amplifies the Lions and what they're going to do on Sunday. It's that simple, right? To beat the best, to be the best, you got to beat the best. And right now, the Lions are the best in the NFC North. I think they're the best team in the NFL. And when healthy, I don't think that there's a team that we can't beat. Even when unhealthy, I think that we've proven that this team is different. I mean, really different. I've never seen a team in all my years of watching football do what the Lions have done. Like, this is unprecedented territory. It's incredible to be a part of it for once. Not only are we winning ball games, we are winning ball games with, 18 players on IR? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Next up, let's talk about Chicago for just a minute. The Bears trotted out their new interim head coach, Thomas Brown, after the former head coach, Matt Eberflus, was fired for his epic collapse versus the Lions. As expected, nothing changed. In matter of fact, you could say that the Bears looked to throw this game intentionally, is what it looked to me. The Bears were just not competitive at all. This was a 38-13 blowout where Chicago had just one first down in the first 2 quarters of football. And they were just getting rolled in the first half, 24-0. The 49ers torched the Bears, 450 yards and 5 touchdowns. Of course, the Bears are dead last in the North right now at 4-9 after starting 4-2. Something tells me Justin Fields could have done better than this. They head to Minnesota in Week 15 before hosting Detroit again in Week 16. Any thoughts on Chicago? And we haven't seen Mr. Broski Bear in quite a while.
Yeah, that was the thing I was going to mention. Since just before the Thanksgiving Day game, we have not seen Broski Bear.
No.
So where's my damn ticket there, Broski Bear? I wouldn't mind going to the game. You going to come pick me up? What's going on?
Go. Come on, Broski. You got to come back. I know you're listening right now. You got to come back on and talk to us. And big shout out to, Trace. She just did it again. She just gave away another 20 memberships. That means 301 members are now part of this channel. And that's just absolutely incredible. So if your name is now highlighted in green, you are a member of this channel. So big shout out and thank you to Trace.
Loser was gifted a membership.
Who?
Loser.
I didn't hear you.
Loser. The person's
name in there.
Loser. Yeah, I was gifted a membership.
That's funny. It looks like Easy E just got one. Is that the Easy E from Woodward?
I don't know.
Could be. We'll see. Maybe he'll join us tomorrow night in the tape review. So thanks again, Trace. You're absolutely awesome. So Eric, you're up next. You wanted to talk about Packers fans for a minute this morning, and some stuff on Jared Goff.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start off with Packer fans. So for the last 30 plus years, I've been the most diehard Lions fan. I mean, I'm talking middle school, high school, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And ever since then, my whole life, I grew up in Newbury, Michigan, in the middle of the UP of Michigan. And it's about 50% Packer fans, 50% Lions fans. And I've been ridiculed my whole life for being a Lions fan by Packer fans and them pushing the whole Favre narrative and Aaron Rodgers narrative in my face the whole time. And it was always the Lions losing to them on some technicality, on some horrible call, ghost face mask, all this other stuff. So it always drove me nuts. And now the shoe is on the other foot. And Jeff Risdon wrote this article, and man, it hit home for me. I'm going to read it real quick. And dude, this is probably the best article I've ever read by any sports writer ever, because they're talking about what it's like to be in my shoes for once. For years, make that decades, the rest of the NFL fan bases have complained about the beneficial treatment the Green Bay Packers have received from the officiating. Ask any Lions fan, any Seahawks fan, any Cowboys fan, Des caught it, or any fan of any other team that pays any attention to the rules, and they'll disgustingly roll their eyes at how many hundreds of times the refs have smiled upon the Packers. Lions fans are acutely aware of being the fire hydrant to the Packers and their officiating dogs. Trey Flowers erroneously being called for illegal hands to the face twice, an egregiously missed delay of game foul that directly led to a Packers win. Aaron Rodgers longingly looking at the referee when he got breathed upon and immediately getting a flag. Pass interference called on a Lions defender who wasn't even in coverage to mop up a Brett Favre incompletion. The list goes on and on again. Bears and Vikings fans can certainly add multiple paragraphs here too. In Detroit's nail-biting win on Thursday night, Green Bay fans learned what it's like to be on the business end of the hose, at least in their eyes. A couple of calls, more correctly, calls not made from referee John Hussey and his crew, favored Detroit in their eyes, perhaps following the lead of head coach Matt LaFleur, who birthed the cow on the sidelines at not getting an offensive pass interference call against the Lions. They can't believe their eyes. Those eyes are spewing some of the saltiest tears ever tasted. Here's another good example that's being exampled around Cheesehead Nation, and this is from a guy named Tom Foolery. So many missed calls tonight on the Lions, some of the worst refereeing I've ever seen in a long time. Literally, the first Packers drive on roughing the passer and 2 missed push-offs from St. Brown on the 2nd and 17. So many other missed holding calls. It's as if the Packers fan base has come to the sudden and collective realization that the middle child learns when the new baby comes along. It's like discovering the presents from Santa in your parents' closet the week before Christmas and learning that the stripper doesn't really love you and your ex never spends a second thinking about you, and it hits them all at once. Welcome to the cold reality of being just another NFL team. You are not special. You are not a beautiful or unique snowflake. Take that, Packer fans.
Dude, that's it's funny and relevant and needed on so many different levels. But you know, I will say this: I mean, the Packers have been dominating, you know, for a long time, for decades. Yeah. You know, but when you go back and look at their last Super Bowl win, what was it? 2011, 13? 2011. Aaron Rodgers. And then before that, it was when? 2006?
Brett Favre.
Favre.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not like they've, in the last 30 years, done a ton better than the Lions. Yeah, Super Bowl is a Super Bowl. Lions haven't even been to one yet.
Yep.
But if you look at the history of both teams, yeah, you've dominated the NFC North. And you have dominated the Lions. But now tides have changed. It's shifted into our direction. And again, I'm going to say it. You got to beat the best to be the best. And right now, the Lions are the best. It doesn't matter what we did 3 years ago. It doesn't matter what we did 5 years ago. It doesn't matter what we did in 08, 06. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. What matters is now. Each season is a new season. We're not playing for what we did last year. We're playing for what we can do this year. So we're just the best right now. And the Packers fans can't take it because they've lost 6 out of the last 7. Whatever it is, or 6 out of the last 8.
Yeah, they're so used to being on top and getting every call their way. Well, now it's finally they're just another team now. They're not the darlings of the NFL anymore. They're just another team, and they can't handle it.
I would say, do they want some cheese with their wine? But I have a feeling that they're pretty loaded on cheese over there.
Yeah, they got lots of that. They need some more wine.
They're giving us plenty of that right now. All right, what else did you have? You had something on Jared Goff this morning too.
Yeah. So, okay. So we have a troll, and his name is Nick Wright.
Oh yeah.
And he called Jared Goff a civilian. Well, I got a couple of numbers and a couple of stats for good old Mr. Nick Wright. The Lions lead the league in scoring at 32.1 points per game. Jared Goff is third in MVP odds at plus 1,000. Now, Jared Allen is much the favorite at minus 420, but Jared Goff is in the discussion. His odds are the same as Lamar Jackson now. He is first in team scoring. He is first in completion percentage at 75.2. And if he gets one more game with a completion percentage of over 75, he will break the record. One more game. He is first in yards per pass. He is second in passer rating at 120.1. I'll say that again. 120.1 is his passer rating on the season. That's incredible.
Well, you know what else is huge too is the fact that his completion percentage is so high, but to all of the haters out there that think that Jared Goff can't throw the ball deep, right? Or dink and dunks the ball everywhere. Eric,
Yep.
Didn't you just say he's first in yards per attempt?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's second in touchdown percentage, and he's seventh in passing yards per game at 249.2 yards per game.
And that's only because we have two of the best running backs in the league.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, he doesn't have to have 400-yard games every game. He's not playing from behind. He's not trying to catch up every game. He doesn't have to throw. They're playing with a lead almost the entire game. They had the lead except for about 2 minutes of the game in the Packer game.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
They had the lead the entire game against the Bears. They had the lead the entire time except for a field goal in the two previous games before that. Both teams before, they kicked a field goal, and then the Lions took the lead and never looked back. The Lions have held the lead for an incredible amount of time this year. So they don't need to throw it every play. He doesn't need to come back and do these miracle things that Stafford used to do. Doesn't need to have a game like Stafford did last night. And if they would have ran the ball last night, they'd have done a lot better.
Well, we just put up a poll wondering if people believe that Dan Campbell is reckless on fourth down, because we're going to have a hot little segment here in a few moments talking about it. But I will say this about Jared Goff, man. I never doubted the dude from day one. I thought it was such an excellent trade, and kind of a stat nerd, right? So the first thing that I did when this trade was going down with Stafford and Goff is I went and compared their stats. And I'm sure I posted it back on Facebook or whatever back then, 4 years ago. And I said, this is kind of nutty that Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford's stats were almost identical back then.
Yeah.
And they're still almost identical today. So I knew that what we were giving up in Matthew Stafford, we were already bringing back in Jared Goff. He could do what Matthew Stafford was doing. It may not have, 1,000-mile-an-hour speed ball for, passes and breaking Calvin Johnson's fingers every other throw. It was going to look a little bit different. Yeah, maybe he wasn't able to run as fast and, look aesthetically pleasing to the eyes when he did take off and run. But he was mobile enough to make things happen. And when Jared Goff is mobile and using his feet and working around the pocket, man, he does exciting things with the football and puts it, on pace and puts it right on the receivers where they need to have it. And, he leads his receivers into making a catch with yak and getting them into a position of making good plays. So I've been nothing but a supporter of Jared Goff. It really blows my mind that people still try to harp on Jared Goff or try to paint him into a negative light or, say he's not considered for an MVP, or that he's not having a good season, or he's civilian-esque in the way that he plays football. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But where it does make sense is that's just what you said. It's just a troll. It's just a hater. It's just somebody that can't get over the fact that he's beating their team and doing good things. So, look, Jared Goff is perfect for this team. He's been perfect for this team. I hope that he has a real chance at winning the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. I think he's definitely deserving of it with what he's done. And I forget his shop, but there's a shop that is attached to him and what he's doing. I'll get it posted up this week so you guys can support it if you want Christmas gifts or something. That's a place to support it, because every dollar you spend over there, he matches it dollar for dollar. So if you buy a $30 sweatshirt, $60 goes into the fund. And we'll get it posted up. I'll put it in the description too so you guys can follow it. Was that it done, Jared? Or do you have anything else?
Yeah, I would rather see Jared get the Walter Payton Man of the Year than the MVP if it means that Goff gets to go to a Super Bowl. I'd rather him win the Super Bowl MVP than the season MVP. I don't care. Oh,
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I would agree. I mean, I'd rather have him get it all, honestly. Jared, I just want him to take every award and, kicking ass and taking names, man. Just keep doing it. So a little NFL news. Let's start with the Bills game. Jay-Z or J.K. Cruz and whoever it was this morning had mentioned that, good old Matthew Stafford put up some good tape last night on the Bills and what can be done. And I agree with that. Now, I picked the Rams to dust off the Bills last night. And Matthew Stafford did not disappoint. 44-42 game. Huge scoring game. 86 points. In a game also where Josh Allen had to do it all. And this is the part that worries me about the Bills game. But at the same point, when we get into it this week about the Bills game, I feel a little bit easier because of what we've been able to do. Josh Allen made NFL history last night. First ever quarterback to pass for 3 TDs and rush for 3 TDs in the same game. He finished the day 22 of 37, passing through the air for 342 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also was the Bills' leading rusher with 82 yards and 3 touchdowns on 10 carries, averaging 8.2 yards per carry. To me, that tells me that the rest of the team fell apart. If he had to do it all, which he did, I think that gives us a better opportunity to win this game on Thursday. Because if we can isolate Josh Allen, which is going to be really tough to do, he's going to have to be dependent on his arm, which is really good. So is he going to get a couple of touchdowns against us? Probably. But I feel if we can isolate him and shut down their run game, we're going to be just fine. I think it's just going to have to rely on our DB room to step up. And what I seen, out of players like Pat O'Connor this past week, last Thursday, and the new guys that we brought in, 4 new guys hit the room on a Sunday and they're already playing on a Thursday. And, a few of them kind of at the top of the list for how they performed on Thursday really made me feel great, especially now that they have 10 days to get ready for this game. I think the Lions are going to be just fine. And I think that at the end of the season, when we're getting healthier and we're bringing some more of these players back off of IR, it couldn't make for a better run than what's about to happen. So playoff seed notes for the Bills. The Bills and Steelers both play Baltimore, Indianapolis, Kansas City, and the New York Jets. Now, Buffalo plays the New York Jets twice, and Pittsburgh plays Baltimore twice. So the Bills are 3-1 against common opponents, and the Steelers are 2-1. The Bills have the Bills have 1 home game remaining against the Jets, and the Steelers will play at the Ravens and host the Chiefs. So it's still anybody's division. It's really still anybody's conference over there, but the Bills are kind of up against it right now. They may not, get the 1 seed. And like I said this last week, I thought that the Steelers could end up taking the 1 seed when I was going through the playoff mock simulator, which we'll get into again tomorrow. So we'll get into the mock simulator tomorrow. I don't think we're going to have time today. Anything you want to add to the Bills game? That's really the only NFL news that I wanted to talk about. So if you have anything about NFL news, fire away.
I just think with the Bills game, I think the Rams did us a favor and they exposed how to beat the Bills. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Their run defense is very porous, and I don't know why the Rams got away from the run game in the second half, but they just completely gave up on it. And I think a mistake that the Rams made last night was trying to sack Josh Allen instead of contain Josh Allen. They did not get a single sack on Josh Allen last night, and they did not get a single sack on Matt Stafford either. There was no sacks in that game. And last night's game was the highest scoring game in the NFL this season.
Wow. I guess I kind of expected that with 86 points being scored. You know, if teams could score against us when we're dropping 52 points or whatever, yeah, you know, we could have had a shot at the highest scoring game, but I'm glad we didn't. As far as injuries for the Bills, I think they're kind of up against it too right now with a few injuries. So that'll be something to watch out for as the season progresses here, to see how everybody gets healthy or not healthy. So I mean, they're suffering injuries at Dalton Kincaid, offensive tackle Grable, Keon Coleman, their wide receiver, Dwayne Carter. Really loved Dwayne Carter coming out of this draft. He was somebody that I thought would fit the Lions well. It didn't happen. Amari Cooper, Taylor Rapp, Quentin Morris, Matt Milano, Reggie Gilliam, Spencer Brown, Casey Toohill, Curtis Samuel. So, I mean, they're just beat up right now. And so are the Lions. No one's as beat up as the Lions right now. So that is something to watch out for. Of course, that's for Super Bowl, right? I mean, that's the next time we would see the Bills after this game. But heading into this game, we'll be paying attention to injuries come Wednesday. So next up is Aiden Hutchinson. We're going to get into a Lions recap, and then after that, we're going to get into the recklessness behavior of Dan Campbell. Is it reckless? And there's a lot being talked about with Dan Campbell right now everywhere. But first, I want to talk about Aiden Hutchinson. I've seen, again, these things keep coming out. And over the weekend, matter of fact, I think it was last night during the live stream, watching the Falcons and Vikings game that I had mentioned, where we had a conversation about Aiden Hutchinson coming back, possibly, you know, the championship game, the NFC championship game. And the thing that I had mentioned is, I don't think it's going to be possible unless he's able to get plenty of time, you know, in practice. It's not so much that, okay, you're healthy, you're cleared, you can go play. His body's going to be soft. He hasn't taken any hits in 10 to 12 weeks. He hasn't given any hits in 10 to 12 weeks. That is probably the most important thing to an NFL player when you enter a new season. You come into the season, and the term soft just means they haven't really gone out and tested their metal yet, their body. They haven't put it into work yet. Lifting weights is one thing, but car crashing against other players is a whole nother level of the football game that they have to get through, right? So they can take the punishment and get through a game. You've got to harden your body for the season. So again, I'm not trying to poo-poo on all of this, but when I see things like this from Jay Glazer, where he says, here's where he is. He's actually doing some underwater running on an underwater treadmill. Okay. 75 to 85% of his body weight is not on that leg. Does it really matter? I don't think so. He's able to walk on land. Well, I hope so. He's human. I didn't understand that comment. I'm glad he can walk on land. Is he a fish? I don't think he's a fish. He's supposed to use a cane, but he's not really using it right now. And they're actually holding out hope just because of how hard he works that he could possibly be back, not for the Super Bowl, but for the NFC Championship game, depending on how that bone feels. And this is the key. And Dan Campbell also says it depends on how much practice he can get. So if anyone has posted any videos about this or talked about Aiden Hutchinson coming back, look, Dan Campbell's not going to let this dude just come back unless he's been able to practice. And I'm going to point to the CJ Gardner thing that happened last season. He came back and he was worthless to us because he was put right back into the fold without getting a bunch of snaps. And in that NFC Championship game, he was a liability. And the other liability in that game was AG putting him in over Brian Branch. I thought was a giant mistake. But that's what you've got to look at. You know, different players, different mentality, sure. Different position, absolutely, I understand it. But I just don't want to see Aiden come in and get hurt because everyone is so worried about him being able to play or being able to play in a Super Bowl, and then he gets hurt again. And I don't think that Dan Campbell's going to allow that to happen. As excited as everybody is, and I am too of getting him back, but I'm willing to wait. The Lions are playing good. They're playing great. We got guys coming back that are healthy. We've brought guys in that can help us win. I fear that if they try to rush this thing and Aiden gets into a game and he gets injured and it ruins his career, everyone's going to be just sick to their stomachs. That is the only reason why I say the things against this that I do, because I fear for the dude's future. It doesn't make sense to rush him back. Now, I've heard the things, if he gets stem cell treatments, which we don't know if he is. Some stem cell treatments aren't even legal in America. You have to go to Mexico or, across the pond to get them. Nobody knows if he's getting them. Yeah, it can help him heal faster. But does that mean that he's going to be ready? Is that bone going to be hard enough to where he's able to take, another leg whip, right? Or a 300-pound lineman falling on his leg? Those are the questions you're not going to know until it happens. So any comments from you on this report by Glazier?
I think it's all speculation. There's no way to know until we get to that point. I mean, people always want to cross the bridge before they get there. And I say all the time, you can't cross a bridge before you get to it. So until we're up against it, there's no reason to speculate and, oh, maybe this, oh, maybe that. You're not going to know until you get a little closer.
Yeah. So Roger Pease, I seen your comment in your Hutchin, 15% of water. I'm literally looking at the video and the water is up to his neck.
Yeah.
Around his shoulders. It's not 15%. It's like 85%. Yeah. So that means that he's maybe 40, 50 pounds of weight on that leg. That's a big difference than 275 pounds. So that's just all I'm worried about. I don't want to see the dude get hurt.
He did walk into the stadium on Thursday with no cane and just a boot on. So,
I didn't use a cane when I had, I did, but I didn't use a cane when I had my back surgery. I was up walking that night, and the next day they made me use a walker in the hospital, but I didn't use a cane right away. I tried to use my hands because I'm bullheaded. I'm a guy. I don't want to be seen with a cane. But then when I got smart about it, I'm like, look, if I take a spill, I'm in trouble. So then I got smart, and I decided to do what the doctor told me to do.
Yeah. Apparently he has a lot of atrophy in that leg.
Oh yeah.
His leg's really skinny. So he's going to have to build that muscle back up pretty fast.
And I think that's going to be the biggest thing that he's going to go against is, is he going to be able to start squatting, 300, 400, 500 pounds? Is he going to be able to leg press 300, 400, 500 pounds? And how many reps is he going to be able to do to be able to rebuild that muscle? Is he going to be able to do all the plyometrics and everything else and the stretching that I would say out of a 1 to 10 chance, 10 being he's going to come back, and a 1, that he's not. I think he's a 1.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't want him to play. It's just I want to see him with Zadarius Smith next year, completely healthy, so we can do this again and have another run.
That's going to be the scariest combo we've ever had.
Hell yeah, it is. I'm excited about it.
Because I'm going to tell you, I have been so pleasantly surprised with Zadarius Smith. He's getting 1 to 2 sacks a game, getting all sorts of pressures. He's a force. He's always in on the play. He's always got a smile on his face. He's loving this.
Yeah.
And he's just a pleasure to have on this team.
He's absolutely been a pleasure to have on this team. I'm super excited to see where this goes with Quan and Jamal Adams and Miles Adams and the other guy. What's his name? Jonah Williams.
Yeah, Jonah played a pretty good game.
Great
for
game.
Having 3-4 days to get ready.
Great game. He got to go through a couple of walkthroughs, and that's about it. So quick Lions recap, and then let's get into Dan Campbell's recklessness, and then we got a guest coming in right around the 9 o'clock hour. So the Lions with a league-leading 18 players on injured reserve and 4 new names joining the team 4 days before the game, won their 11th straight in front of the home crowd last Thursday night, which Eric and I were both there, man. It was what a feeling leaving that stadium. Like, it was like a big weight lifted off your shoulders. Like, whew, we got through it.
I tell you, I wish I would have recorded our conversation we had standing at the top of the stairs. I'm serious. It was like a Notre Dame moment up there. It was awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's something to all these minerals and rocks you got around you, because you tend to get a few things right. I don't have the minerals and rocks, but I tend to get a few things right too. We'll find out after 9 a.m. So this is a game that went down to the wire. You know, a game that I expected to go down to the wire, a game that I thought was going to be a shootout, or at least it was going to be a close game. Now, my score prediction was, okay, me being the Homer fan, I'm going to say that we're going to win by 10. But the internal me told everybody this is going to be a tight game. And look, another Jake Bates walk-off game-winning field goal. I mean, this dude, Jake Bates has just been amazing for the Lions so far. I'll never forget, I was watching Jake Bates kick, I think it was a 64-yarder, was his first kick at Ford Field, the game winner with the Michigan Panthers. I was on the phone with another creator, and I said, man, did you see this guy just kick this field goal? I said, I'm about to do a video about him right now. I said, we need to get this guy in Detroit. And it happened. And then I remember you going to the Michigan Panthers game, talking to Jake and saying, Jake, you've got to stay here, man. You've got to be a Lion. And he was kind of like, we'll see, I don't know, or whatever he said, but
he gave me the PR answer.
Yeah. And here he is.
Panther.
And he's winning games for the Lions. And he's just been dead nuts on, every time he's got to use that leg. So a game that, again, saw more injuries to the defense. Lee McNeil went down not once, but twice, banged his head around, I guess, a little bit with the concussion protocol, came back in the second half, and then he went back out. I have a feeling he'll be fine for Thursday. I have not heard anything. Matter of fact, I haven't even watched any of Dan Campbell's press conferences over the weekend, if there were any. But how on earth do the Lions keep doing this is the question. And what is Aaron Glenn eating for breakfast? Because I want it. Whatever he's eating, I need to know what it is, because Aaron Glenn is on a different planet right now. Whatever he has decided to do, or however he woke up in the morning, each and every morning, he's doing something different. Aaron Glenn is going to be a head coach for some team next fall, and that sucks. Because he is clearly one of the best, if not the best, defensive coordinators in the league right now. Overall, the Lions held Jordan Love under 300 yards, which I guess you call that an accomplishment for what kind of defense we had. They held Josh Jacobs under 50 yards, but he did get 3 TDs on the day near the goal line. The Packers did score 31, but it was a game that the score didn't seem to really match the Lions' defensive output. The Lions, former practice squad guy, Pat O'Connor, had a quote after the game speaking to the way that the Lions rose up with the guys that just arrived and winning in a way that many teams can't, and having 2 guys that literally just arrived getting hits on Jordan Love and helping this defense make plays early was huge. And this is what Pat O'Connor had to say. He said, Miles Adams, Jonah Williams, they just came in on Monday. So hats off to them. He said, but it was a great feeling knowing what we can do with the people that we have today. And just to overcome a win like that is insane. That's a hat off to us because of next man up, and it's a great feeling. Now, Pat O'Connor's been on the practice squad the majority of the season, right? He's been called up. Dude had probably his best game of the season. Matter of fact, I think he had leading pressures for the day, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He might have. I'll have to go back and look, but his stats are up there. Jack Campbell had a great night, finishing with the most tackles and really guiding the defense into position to make plays. And again, this is another storyline that is being written. Alex Anzalone goes down. He was the green dot of the defense. He was the one calling the plays, being the maestro, orchestrating everything. And now that's been Jack Campbell for a few weeks. And here Jack Campbell has got what you would call rookies on the defense, but they're not rookies to the NFL, just showing up within a couple of days. And he's got to get these guys prepared. He's got to get these guys ready. He's got to make the calls and tell them what to do and where to go. I don't think he skipped a beat. I think the Jack is going to probably be one of the better middle linebackers in the NFL soon. He's really on his way. Now, the Lions offense, led by Jared Goff, finding 6 different receivers, each catching 5 or more passes in this game. But the fourth quarter is really where Jared Goff did his best work. He completed all 10 of his passes, tying his most attempts he's ever had in a quarter without a single incompletion, which has kind of been the narrative for Jared Goff all season. You know, he'll start off a game 12 for 12 or 14 of 14 or finish a game 18 of 18. He threw for 106 yards. He guided the Lions to 2 scoring drives in the fourth quarter, and most importantly, the game-winning drive ending with that Jake Bates 35-yard field goal. One of my calls for the game was JMO and Jack having big games. Now, JMO had a big night. Maybe, it didn't go for 100 yards. So what? Maybe he didn't get in the end zone. Doesn't matter. It's what he did while he was blocking, for Sonic and Knuckles, while he was making plays with his hands and getting open, catching the ball. It was a big night for how much that ball was spread around. But Tim Patrick was the player of the game. 2 touchdowns for him on that night. Dan Campbell's quote on Tim Patrick, which I guess we're going to start calling him Patrick. He said this. He said, Goff had another big game. TP was big. Laporta made some big plays for us. Look, you can go down the line, but man, I was proud of them. I just love the fact that we just find a way. And you feel like the narrative going in, we weren't buying any of this stuff about where we were at. No excuses. And our guys knew where we were at. We don't need to talk about being tough. We don't need to talk about being resilient. We live it. And it's what we are. We just proved it again. I don't think there's anything more for Dan Campbell to really have to prove to anybody. I think that what he has done since he's been part of this organization has been proving it since day one. He started off with the kneecaps statement in his opening statement to the fans and the media, and he's followed through with everything that he's said. Big shout out to Chip Bradshaw. He said, in honor of Trace's generosity, he just dropped in a $20 super chat for the Rock On Cancer Foundation. Appreciate you, Chip, and your donation to the channel. So, with a little recap there, what were your thoughts on the game? For the offensive side of the ball, Jack Campbell, the new guys. Take a couple seconds here and discuss it. Then we'll bring in our guest here in a few moments.
Yeah. So, for the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've been predicting that Tim Patrick was going to get a touchdown. And every week I'd bet 10 or 20 bucks on it. And it never came to fruition. Well, I had one of my feelings on this Packer game, and I bet more on Tim Patrick to get a touchdown than I did on the game itself. So I placed a $100 bet on Tim Patrick anytime touchdown, and it made me $500.
So you took my calls, huh? You believed in them.
So I put my money where my mouth was, and it came through for me. So him, Patrick, boom, baby. I love it. It was fantastic.
I always try to put out my calls about an hour or so before the game on Twitter. And as we were going through the game, I kept kind of updating and reposting it, if you will. So I'm going to bring in Riley O'Brien. So Riley wants to do a segment here, just kind of discussing, a little bit of the calls of the game. I might have a question or two for him. So let me get Riley brought in here in just a second. And then we'll go over a game recap. So I'll do a game recap while Riley's on, and then we'll kind of transition.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Riley is part of the Talkin' Football podcast, which they're going to be joining the Rocked On network here. They already have. It's just taken a few moments to get things kind of up and running, and we'll start seeing their content showing up soon. And these guys, they really have a good rap on the NFL and college football and everything else. So it'll be fun to watch, what content they bring in and how exciting it is to have all of the different content that they're going to be bringing in. It's going to make a huge difference for an educational purpose, whether it's betting or college or NFL draft, you name it. I got to get this guy set up. It's not liking me right now.
Ah,
Hold on.
I can see him in the back room.
There we go. Getting close. All right, I'll just fix it here. Riley, do you have audio this morning?
I do, yes. Do you guys hear me?
Mhm.
I can hear you. That is good. Let me just adjust one thing real quick, and we'll get rolling here. If someone could let us know in the chat if you can hear Riley okay. So if I've got to bump up his volume a little bit, I will. Otherwise, we'll get rolling. So Riley, good morning, man. How you doing this morning?
I am doing well, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Doing good. So before we get into the segment that you wanted to roll into today, I do want to just do a quick recap here on the remaining games and see if, between you and Eric here, what you guys have to say about it. But Tim Twentyman kind of does these updates throughout the week. And this is one that I wanted to recap this morning. So he started with Buffalo, week 15. He said that some are billing this as a possible Super Bowl preview in Detroit, which I agree. I think there's a big opportunity here that the Lions are going to meet up with the Bills. And I feel like this is just the story that we've been waiting for to be written, because the Bills and the Lions have been, friendly, if you will, as teams, as organizations, as franchises. They've always been friendly. The Lions have lent their stadium to them on a couple of occasions when, they get inundated with big snowfall. But the Lions are at the top, are the top team in the NFC after 13 games, 12-1. And some would argue that the Bills at 10-2 are the best team in the AFC. Regardless of where the Bills slot into the playoffs, the Chiefs have only one loss on the season, but that was to Buffalo. Now, Tim Twentyman says that the Bills own a top 5 offense and a top 10 defense in points per game heading into their week 14 matchup against the Rams, which they lost. Now, they will be the most complete team that the Lions have faced all season, with an MVP candidate, Josh Allen. So I guess my first question is, any reservations about Buffalo this week for you, Riley? And then I'll ask the same question to you, Eric.
Not really. It's going to be a good game, right? But when your team's won 11 consecutive games, we've beaten really good teams so far this year. So I look at Buffalo, respect them for sure, but if I was going to that game right now, I'd feel like it's like a 70% chance that the Lions are going to win. It'll be a tough game for sure. But it just when you think that the Lions are they going to slip up somewhere along the way, they just keep responding. And at some point you just have to trust Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn to continue to game plan. And I think the players are very motivated. I think they're very locked in. I think the leadership of the team has got a really good feel for where the team is at, with their mindset and their focus and attention to detail. I'm confident that the Lions are going to be able to beat the Bills.
What do you think, Eric? Do you have any reservations about the game on Thursday? I know we'll get into it, Tuesday, Wednesday here talking about the Bills, but do you have any reservations after what you witnessed last night and kind of where both seasons are trending right now?
No, the Bills have their division locked up. Okay, they are the AFC North winners already. They've already got it locked up. They have a playoff seed. They're basically out of the 1 seed now, since the Chiefs won last night and they lost. So it's pretty much out of reach. So I'm going to say the Lions win this game. I'm about 90% confident in this one. We just need to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball.
We'll see. Kind of what I was saying earlier. I think that we just have to contain Allen. And if we can remove Allen from the equation, things kind of make more sense defensively. But I don't think we're going to be able to stop the Bills from scoring. So week 16, the Lions travel on the road to Chicago. It's going to be another outdoor game. Very few outdoor games the Lions have played this season. So the Bears have given Detroit all that they can handle on Thanksgiving. That second half collapse by the Lions defense, where we lost 4 players, I believe, in the second half. And some of those players didn't make it back to the team. They're on IR now. Lions won 23-20. in that game. But had the Bears not let the clock run out in that final minute, the huge collapse that got Eber flushed, who knows how that game ends? That game ends in a tie, goes to overtime. Everybody hates overtime. I don't think Dan Campbell trusted overtime with the defense that he had. I think he wanted to end the game as quickly as he could, and it was out of his hands. He couldn't do anything about it. The Bears gave us that game. But we did not match up well in the second half. So now we're going to be on the road in a game that we really need to win, because if we win the next 3, we don't have to worry about what Minnesota does. So do you have any reservations about the Chicago game right now, given the roster that we have if they stay healthy? I'll start with you, Eric, and then we'll go to Riley.
Absolutely not. So the Chicago Bears coming into Thanksgiving were playing for their absolute playoff lives. They had to win some games to even be eligible for the playoffs. They are now, they cannot win the NFC North. And I think they're basically one game from being eliminated from playoff contention. They are guaranteed 4th place in the NFC North. And as you could tell with the 49ers game, they've given up.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So Riley, same question to you. Any reservations right now about the Bears game?
No, nope. And it kind of is funny because it's just like, are we just going to keep saying, nope, Lions are going to win. Nope, Lions are going to win to every one of them. But I think back to Jalen Johnson's comment, and I'm a big fan of him because he's a University of Utah, former Ute. And just hearing, I don't know if you guys heard his interview he did after, he went on a tirade against Eberflus in the locker room after the Thanksgiving game. And as I'm listening to it, I'm just thinking of the different feel in that locker room versus what the Lions have. We see the post-game videos with Dan Campbell and the team, and yeah, everyone's happy when you win, but I can't imagine a player in Detroit. It doesn't feel like there's any one of them that would even have the gumption to scream at the coach like that. So the point being, their best players, their wills, they're broken. They're human beings. They can get all fired up and do the pregame speech, but as soon as the game starts and as soon as you're down 3 touchdowns in the third quarter, you're playing for nothing. I mean, they had like 4 yards at halftime yesterday. It balanced out as it always does, but if the interim coach is taking over, if it's going to happen, we saw that with Darrell Bevel a few years ago. In fact, they went to Chicago and beat Chicago because it's like, hey, we got this new coach. We're going to rally around him. If that doesn't happen, they come out that flat. No, the Bears, I think, I don't know if they'll win another game the rest of the year. And if they do, I certainly don't think it'll be against Detroit.
Well, I think for me, I mean, the only reservation that I have right now is that they have, this interim coach who he's going to throw out all the rules, right? And he's going to do everything in his power to try to win a divisional game. He wants to win an opportunity at a head coaching position. So I think that this is a big game where no holds barred, right? It's a cage match for this coach. I think that he's going to give us anything and everything that we can handle. I'm expecting a lot of trickery with the Chicago Bears offense. And I just think they're going to completely sell out on defense because, to your points, they have nothing to play for right now. So why not blitz every down? Why not just get after it on offense and do as much trickery as you can, to try to, pin back our defense? And that's, I mean, if you really look at it from that perspective, that's how you can beat the Lions in that game, by doing things that are not normal, right?
And
maybe he doesn't.
The Lions do, yeah.
Well, to a degree. So
yeah.
I think you take what Dan Campbell does, what the Lions do times 4 or 5 here. I think that would be the difference for the Bears. Like they're gonna just really go after it, I think, against the Lions. Yeah. But speaking of the 49ers, look, they're missing McCaffrey for the rest of the season. Isn't Brandon Ayuk also done for the season?
Yep.
And so they just suffered another injury on their offensive line. I think his name is Barch or something like that. He was filling in for Aaron Banks, who was concussed. But the 49ers have, went from a team that was supposed to repeat to a team that is, they're 5-7 right now. This is a Monday night football matchup. It's a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. And this is a game that, we are all excited to finally go back in and get our revenge. And I'm expecting that that's going to happen. But what we've seen last night out of the 49ers still tells me that they can play the game of football, that they have enough players. How are they able to completely thrashed the Bears, but we were not? That is the question I have left unanswered here. So I'm going to rewatch the game today because I don't understand what they could do against the Bears that we can't do, because we had pretty much everybody available on the offense. We didn't have the same success. So Tim Twentyman says, if there's any team that knows what the Lions are going through on the injury front, it's the 49ers. They've been decimated this season. They're currently 5-7 in last place in the NFC West. They have 30 players miss more than 120 games combined, according to one report, and they aren't expected to have their all-pro running back, Christian McCaffrey, back this season. So any reservations about the 49ers? I think it'll be a close game right now. Riley, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Eric.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I do think this would be a closer game. The Lions, they've been, it feels invincible, but they may be in a position where they don't necessarily need to, go 16-1 here, or 17. What do we play? 18 games now? 17 games?
17.
Yeah, math is hard. But yeah, I think that I'm with you on that one. They're a well-coached team. They've got scrappy players. But man, if you told me at the start of the year that, hey, McCaffrey goes down, the Niners are not going to be the team that you think that they're going to be due to injuries, it just feels like another thing that's lining up. Like, okay, this is our year. It has to be. But yeah, I think that game, it doesn't seem like it's going to have the weight that we thought it would going into the year. But I think that it'll come down to the fourth quarter for sure.
So by the weight, I think what you mean by that is this could have been a matchup that was deciding seeding,
Yes.
for the NFC. And this is not a game that is going to decide that at all, other than the Lions really need to win to maintain their edge over the Eagles. And I went through the different, options yesterday that the Lions had, for the Eagles. And we're going to review that again tomorrow. We'll get into, what's left for seeding options for the Lions. What do they need to do to win? So Eric, what are your thoughts on the 49ers right now?
Well, in the beginning of the year, there were 3 games that the Lions were not favored in, and this was the one with the biggest favorite to the other team, and this was 4.5 points for the 49ers. And originally I had taken the 49ers to beat the Lions, and the Lions were going to be 14-2 after this game. And this was preseason, by the way, and I took 49ers 37, Lions 35. And I will not be using that score depending on how the next 2 games go for the 49ers. The 49ers' next game is versus the Rams, who are red hot and 1 game out of the lead in the NFC West. If the Rams win that game, they basically knock the 49ers out of playoff contention. And then the following game, the 49ers play the Dolphins, who are also playing for their playoff lives. If the Dolphins and the Rams can go in and beat the 49ers, we would be facing a 6-win Niner team going into that game. I believe that we would take that game easily because their will would be broken and they'd be completely out of playoff contention.
I don't know. So you mentioned preseason predictions on score.
Mm-hmm.
So week 15 against Buffalo, I had the Lions winning 21-17. Week 16, this was preseason, against Chicago, I had the Lions winning 21-7. 49ers, I had the Lions winning 27-21. And then the Vikings, I had the Lions losing 22-21. So those scores are not going to stand now because I feel like this is the Goffense, right? This is the time where Ben Johnson is going to have to put up more points to win some of these games because our defense is going to let up more points right now until they can figure out, who's going to do what and how they can do it and how they can get back to the defense that was so shut down and limiting teams to, an average of 17.5 points per game. So I think I'm probably going to have to add a touchdown to every single one of those scores on both sides of the ball right now. But for me, I think the 49ers are a team that can surprise you. They're still loaded. They still have some good players on both sides of the ball. I don't think it's going to be an easy win. And we already know what it's like, being at the game last year, what it's like to play in San Francisco. It's not easy. And then week 18, Minnesota. let's just be honest here for a minute. They keep winning. They have a very potent offense. They have a very potent defense that is still fairly healthy on both sides of the ball. Sam Darnold has been doing things that a lot of people didn't expect. I, for one, did expect it. And he was put onto a team that not only brought in a good running back, but they had 2 elite weapons as far as wide receivers. And he's got a cannon for an arm. As long as he gets a little bit of protection, he's going to find somebody. And what I noticed last night during the live stream is his feet are active. He has some of the best feet in the game. He finds a way to navigate that pocket. So I don't think that this is going to be a game that we can, take lightly to end the season. I just hope that we don't need it. And we really need the Eagles to drop a game. But at the end of the day, I think every Lions fan is probably going to stand up and say, look, we don't care. We're going to go in and try to win every single game. We don't care what anybody else does. We have to take care of our own. And that is week by week, we have to knock each one of these opponents out, finish 16-1. That is the best case scenario, and walk in with the 1 seed. And then we get some guys back. So it's going to be a tough game. I'm still going to stick with right now that the Lions could potentially drop that game. It just depends on what I see out of the next couple of weeks with the defense. So my mind will hopefully change. Eric, what do you think?
Well, the Vikings have a tough schedule to get to us. And for them to get to us undefeated over the next 3 games, I believe is impossible. They have to play the Bears. They have to play the Seahawks, who are leading their division by 1 game only. They have to play the Packers, who are scraping to get something other than the 7 seed or the 6 seed. And then they play us. They are going to be battered, beaten, and broken by the time they get to us. And there's a lot of people out there that think they're frauds because they're only winning games by 3 points. They're kind of playing like the Chiefs. They're playing Chiefs ball right now. They even put a bunch of statistics up yesterday saying how they won so many close games and yada, yada, yada. I just don't think it's sustainable. I think the Vikings drop 1 or at least 1 of those 3 games.
I would agree. And I think that, to your point, when you're going up against a team like the Seahawks, who they always play tough. The defense always plays tough. And you've got Geno Smith back there that, I mean, he's a pretty damn good quarterback. But they're trying to hold on, right? They're trying to hold on for their own playoff hopes. They're trying to hold on to their seeding, possibilities. And that's, outside of the Bears, I think that's where the Vikings are going to have a tough test. They're going up against the Seahawks and a Packers team that are both vying, for playoff contention or seeding opportunity. And that's where you're going to get the best game possible out of both of those scenarios. So, Riley, what do you think about Minnesota?
Yeah, they just keep winning, right? It seems so crazy. Like as Eric's talking, I'm thinking, man, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, they're all right there. It's kind of like in the NBA for years. It was like the record that would get you like the 1st seed in the Eastern Conference gets you like the 7th seed in the West. It's like, why? The Lions have 12 wins, and yet there's these other divisions where, if, you're still in the mix for the 1st seed or first, to win the division with 7 wins. So it's just like, man, the year that we win 12 of 13 games, but Minnesota's still right there. They just won't go away. If that does come down to a game, I'm just thankful that we've got it at home. Will, you talk about it a lot, that the Lions need to protect home field, right? And I just remember so many times over the years, it always felt like the Lions would lose it at home. I feel like that's changed. So if that game does mean something, in the last week of the season, again, I'm confident that the Lions will be ready to go, and they're not going to slip up at week 18 after getting to this point. Won't be easy. It wasn't easy when we played in Minnesota earlier this year, but thank goodness we got that win, because things would look different now. If imagine if Minnesota had won that game.
Yeah, it would be much different. We'd be knotted up right now worrying about week 18. That game would definitely have, more of a meaning than what it does right now. It still means something now, but right now I think the next 3 games in front of us mean more. Quick update here on teams eliminated from the playoffs, and this was as of yesterday at 4:25. I don't know what's changed, but the Giants are out. Raiders are out. Patriots are out. Jaguars are out. Titans are out. Browns are out. Jets are out. So that's your update as of 4:25 yesterday. So last night's afternoon games and the evening game and tonight's game, which I don't even know who's playing tonight, that'll decide probably some more fates. I haven't seen anything else popped in as far as updates, but maybe something else will come up here in just a moment.
I think it's Cincy and Dallas tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that could put Dallas out, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it could. If
I think it's the other way. Other way, they could put the Bengals out.
Bengals, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Dallas won a couple games recently. They're still kind of in the mix because Parsons keeps saying, don't count us out. But yeah, despite Joe Burrow's statistical brilliance, yeah, the Bengals are barely hanging on.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys are 5-7 and the Commanders are 8-5. Cowboys would have to win out. They'd have to win out to even have a shot. Because you've got the Rams at 7-6, you've got the Seahawks at 8-5. One of those two teams is going to win their division. You got the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers. I mean, all three of them are making it, and then you got the Bucks. So it'd be really tough for the Cowboys. I mean, never say never. I mean, the Lions are in a position in 2022, right, where we had an opportunity if it wasn't for the Seahawks game where the refs decided to all throw their flags on phantom calls. So I think it's 4 or 5 calls I highlighted in that video. So anyway, let's get into what's up next here. Let me take a look at my notes real quick. We'll get into recklessness in just a minute. So Riley, you had a segment for today, and it was kind of going back, talking about a few calls from the last week or so. So what did you notice, and what exactly did you want to bring up this morning?
Yeah, I wanted to, and I was talking with Will yesterday, and I'm like begging him, like, please, can I come on the show? I want to talk about the locks. And I love it. At the start of the show, you guys, you've both made reference a couple times. Man, we should have recorded the conversation we had at the top of the stairs at Ford Field. Let's do this. I want to be able to maybe even have like a Monday type of segment where we can kind of go over these, because you're both very, good at kind of having a feel for not just how the game's going to go, but how it's even going to play out. Will, you had 5 calls, and I love that you posted them out on Twitter from this last game against Green Bay. One of them, it took all of one play for the Lions defense to come to fruition, so I imagine that felt pretty good. That was the Zadarius Smith sack.
Mm-hmm.
I love that these calls too are so specific. It's a player doing a certain thing. You also called Jahmyr Gibbs getting in the end zone, and you also called and nailed Tim Patrick scoring his first touchdown. Not only did he get 1, but he got 2. And it's so, I was talking with Will yesterday. I said, if you took a poll from everybody entering Ford Field, if you said, okay, drop $100 bill right now that Amon-Ra scores a touchdown or Tim Patrick scores a touchdown, who is everyone going to take?
Yeah, and I would say that the majority of them is going to probably take Amon-Ra St. Brown, just because he's the likely target, right? And it's a big divisional matchup, and you just expect Amon-Ra to, have a better game. But to be honest with you, I think the question you asked me yesterday was, why? Why have I selected Tim Patrick the last 2 games? And quite honestly, it's when I watch the tape and I look at the defense, what the Bears were doing and what the Packers are doing. So Tim Patrick had a touchdown versus the Bears that got called back, right?
It did, yep. But you still, I couldn't believe it. You're calling it because
I thought he was going to get his first touchdown against the Bears. I mean, I saw the way that the defense was allowing that third type of receiver kind of, have their way with the defense, especially around the red zone. It's like they would forget about the third receiver and they would hone in on the running back and the top 2 receivers, whether it was we'll just use the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a Khalif Raymond, as a number 2 in that instance, or a Laporta. But the third receiver, for some reason, so Amon-Ra and J-Mo are covered, but the third receiver was kind of being left alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I noticed that with the Bears. I'm like, he's going to get a touchdown. As soon as they get it near the red zone, he's going to get targeted. He's going to get a touchdown. And it damn near happened, but it got taken away. So then I started watching the Packers tape, kind of study the stats. And I made these notes, because I saw a few things. I said most notably, it was the amount of touches that receivers would get against the Packers. For instance, like the Dolphins, they had 10 players catch a ball. Even though the 49ers got whooped, right? They still had 6 guys catch a ball and 8 targeted. The Bears game, they had 6 touch the ball, and Keenan Allen had 4 catches as their 3rd and 4th option in the game. And then in the Jags game, there were 8 receivers that touched the ball. And then going back to the first game of this season in Lambeau, the Lions had 8 players touch a pass. And that was a crazy game that I couldn't even believe that Jared Goff was passing the ball as good as he was in that game. But the Packers tend to give up, plays to a lot of players, and Goff will really find that open man more often than not. So that was kind of the first thing that really stood out, is that, a lot of people or a lot of players were getting opportunity. So what was making it different for for this game or any other game, facing the Packers, for whatever reason, their defense, they hone in on a couple of players and they kind of tend to just let 1 or 2 get open. And if you go back and watch the tapes, I watched some of it this morning. I've been up since like 3, and I watched some of it last night. There's plays where you're going to see a lot of Lions players that are just wide open. But Jared Goff has already gone through the progressions, or he's already gotten the ball out and didn't get to that progression. And Tim Patrick was having his way with this defense. So that's what I noticed the most, is that they were allowing the 3rd or 4th wide receiver on a play have more of an opportunity around the red zone. And it was just a defensive lapse. They were in the wrong style of defense, and Jared Goff took advantage of it. So I expected that to happen in this game, and it did. Not once, but twice. And Amon-Ra had a good game, but wasn't his best game, right? Sam Laporta had a good game, wasn't his best game. And I expected those kinds of things to happen, that you're going to see a lot of guys get involved, and it did. So it's just studying tape, man, and what you see is what you see. Big shout out to Ed O'Neill. He says the Lions' magic number is 3. If they win the next 3, they clinch everything with no help. If Philly and Minnesota lose, we can clinch by winning the next 2. So, Ed, I went through that same scenario. And again, I appreciate your super chat, $4.99 donation to Rock Down Cancer Foundation. I think that there's some weird scenarios in there. It depends on which team we beat or lose to, and vice versa. Because I did that whole playoff predictor, right? And then I went through it a second time, and it changed. And I don't know what changed, but it kind of made me look like a fool because it changed. And we're going to go through it tomorrow morning. And trust me, today I'm going to go through it backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and do every scenario until we can figure out what's going on. But so that's to answer your question, Riley. What was my other calls? What did I not get? Amon-Ra, I thought he would get a TD. That didn't happen.
And Kirby interception.
Yeah, that one burns me up. Kirby, damn it.
That was so close.
It was close, but
I feel bad I let Kirby down, because I'm so reserved on calling the interception, because every time I call it for Kirby, he gets one. This time he didn't, so it's my fault.
Yeah, you don't want to overuse it. Let's not forget, everyone listening, I'm sure everybody knows, but Will's like a professional chef. This guy knows how to cook. That's why I love that he calls Ben Johnson the mixologist, because he's very calculated with what he calls. And I'll say as well, listening to the show last week, Eric was dialed in completely. Mm-hmm. Eric said, I felt like this could be one of the most important games in Ford Field history. I'll admit, when I heard it, I thought it was a little bit hyperbolic, just because I'm like, nah, man, they've done well, and it's not the end of the world if the Lions lose. But thinking back on that 4th and inches, how grateful I was. I'm like, dude, just get the inch, kick the field goal. They did the same thing in LA last year, where they don't even give Herbert a chance to come on the field. Dan Campbell said, nope, get the inch. We're going to kick the field goal. We're going, and we're winning. If we didn't have this win right now, you'd probably feel like, damn, Eric was right. I wish we had won that game.
Well, he was right for more than just a few reasons, but the biggest reason was, now looking at the playoff scenario, the loss to the Packers would have meant way more over the next few weeks, because that would have put Minnesota, we would have been neck and neck with Minnesota right now.
The energy would be totally different. And it's not just because Eric's cannot stand the Packers, right? I feel, am I right, Eric? Like
Yes.
you don't like them. None of us do. But you were spot on with the importance of that game. So I wanted to be able to come on. Like I said, I'm asking Will, because Will, you do this every week. How great is it? Rocks Locks. It's a perfect call. I'd like to continue to just bring attention to these, to review them, because you guys damn near get 80% of them right. And
which is tough to do. I don't think people understand how difficult that is to not only call wins and losses, but to be able to call, significant plays. So
I think about Lions football like 80% of the time, and I don't ever stop and think like, okay, is Amon-Ra getting one this week? Is Laporte getting one? But I'm like listening to this show, and I'm like, oh, you know what? So when Tim Patrick gets that touchdown the other day, I know Will's at Ford Field. I text him right away in all caps. Like I think I know somebody that called this. But yeah, Eric, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I did want to again bring that attention, because I give you a hat tip, because you were spot on with how important this game actually turned out.
When I was at the game, I was telling everybody around me, dude, I bet $100 for Tim Patrick to get a touchdown. I need Tim Patrick, and he didn't get the first one, and everybody's like, oh, because he almost had one, right? And I was like, man, they're not going to try to throw him the ball again. He's not going to get an end zone throw again, because he missed the first one. And they threw that second one, and he got it. And everybody around me was high-fiving me. It was awesome. And then to have the announcers on Thursday Night Football say that was the game of the year.
Yeah.
And that was one of the best Thursday Night Football games they've ever had. And Al Michaels said, why can't every Thursday be like this?
Well, that's because of Al Michaels. And you know what? We're gonna get into Al Michaels here in just a moment. But yeah, it was the game of the year. I mean, it was shaping up to be the game of the year. And it was definitely the best Thursday night game that I've ever been a part of. And witnessed, firsthand. But I think that even watching from home, man, it just had to be such a gut punch type of a game for people that were at home watching this game unfold. I don't know what just happened. I lost my YouTube. It just shut down. I don't know what's going on, but I got to get it back open.
There were gut punch moments, and again, I'm all the way out here in Utah. But again, I feel like I'm in the stadium with you guys because of the insight and perspective that you have, which I'm sure there's a couple hundred people watching this right now. We're all here for same reason. It's the content is just phenomenal, and I feel like this is, if you want to kind of have, it's like a blueprint for the game. It's we got to go out score the team, but these guys, Will and Eric, they're talking you through how it needs to happen, how it's likely to happen, and I just
a lot of preparation, man. I spent a lot of time studying and trying to put segments together so we can have good conversations. So let's jump into another one. If you want to stick around, Riley, go for it. If you got to jump, I understand. I know you got work this morning, but let's run into this one. So recklessness. This is what today's all about. Is recklessness. And I put up a post here, and I asked everybody in the chat, is Dan Campbell reckless on fourth down? And you got 119 votes. So that's great. We got a lot of people engaged this morning. Only 17% said yes. And I'm extremely elated that Lions fans are in agreement this morning. The majority are in agreement this morning that Dan Campbell is not reckless. And here's what I want to start with. And you're going to get my honest opinion this morning, obviously, as you do every day. Lions are 4th and 1 from the Lions 31. There's a minute 34 left in the third quarter. And they handed off to Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, had Jahmyr just pushed the ball to the sideline and cut towards Brock Wright on this play, he probably would have got the first down. And I stress maybe on this because it was really tight in there, and I feel like he just kind of missed a step. And I didn't really like the call here. I thought it was a terrible call to run to that side of the field. Now, there's never a bad time to run towards Penei Sewell, but I think the outside zone around the end was a tough call at that moment in the game, so deep into your own territory. I thought, you run a power eye, just right up the gut or right off to
him, right?
Yeah, it was kind of a handoff.
I think it was a pitch. Yeah,
it was to the right. So I feel like the power I would have been just fine here, you know, putting, or just even a power, right? So if you get a tight end coming in motion and you just slam him behind Glasgow, you know, in between Glasgow and Sewell, I think that's where, you know, whether it's Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery, which David Montgomery, in my opinion, would have been the better call. I feel that would have been a first down. They only needed 1 yard. Why are you going all of this extra distance out to the right?
Yes.
It's just go forward. And it's those types of, you know, what I call cuteness of Ben Johnson that I just can't stand. I've also would have put 2 guys in motion probably. I probably would have put 2 tight ends in on the play. I would have got as big as I could go. You're not hiding anything. The Packers know you're not passing the ball, but if the Lions would have passed the ball, I wouldn't have been surprised. But doing play action in that, you know, on that, you know, down and distance and where you are in the field probably would have got blown up right away. So, but was it a reckless call? That's the question. And will the Lions succumb to their head coach's flamboyant nature to kind of break all the traditional rules of the NFL? Or is that what makes this team what it is and its identity? Now, when you listen to Dan Campbell and he says time and time again, this is our identity, this is who we are. During the week, every player knew going into this game that this is what they were going to do. Amon-Ra said it after the game. I think David, Jahmyr, all of them said it after the game. This is what we were going to do. Dan already prepped us during the week. When we get into these 4th down short situations, we're going to go for it. Now, here's my honest opinion, and then I'm going to bring in like 3 different sets of audio that we're going to listen to, and we're going to give you a little bit more of a background story of what everyone else is saying and kind of continue on with the conversation. For me, bad call. And the reason why is because you're so deep. Yeah, I get it. It's the end of the 3rd quarter. There's no difference if you punt the ball and you're giving the Packers, you know, the same opportunity that they had. You didn't give them an extra possession. Whether you punt the ball or fail on a 4th down, it's the same thing. All you did was give them 50 extra yards on the play, which then they scored immediately. So that to me was a bad call. It's almost an identical call that they did in the NFC Championship game, which failed. So I wouldn't do that. Not right there. I would put it back on the defense, but then again, I think I understand where Dan Campbell was going with this and exactly why he did what he did at the end of the game, going for it on that 4th and inches. The defense was having trouble stopping, you know, the Packers from scoring. But I would say this, if you give them the ball in 30-yard line in your territory, you're going to make it really difficult to stop them. If you put them down on the 20, well, they have to come all the way down the field. You have to force Jordan Love to beat you. Let him beat you that way, right? And it will take... And it will take, you know, a lot of time off the clock. But at that time of the game, I don't think that you were in trouble. So for me, I wouldn't have done it. But at the end of the game, I understand why Dan did it. And I agree with it. He wanted to end the game right there. He wanted no part of having the Green Bay Packers go down and kick a field goal and tie that game up and go into overtime and have to trust a coin flip. That is just the absolute worst idea ever. So that one I agree with, you know, end the game, get done with it. But in the 3rd quarter, I feel like it was a bad call, but I'm not going to say it's reckless because at the same time, I think you really have to trust in what they are doing. If they would have put a different play in, like I said, I think that they would have got it. And then no one's talking about it.
Exactly.
Period. No one's talking about it. So Teddy Bruschi, let me open this up real quick. So Teddy Bruschi sounded off on Dan Campbell. And this is what he had to say. He said, give me Dan Campbell on the field with me. I'll take it. Don't put Dan Campbell on my sideline. I just don't know. I don't know the emotional control of this coach. I mean, every single time? Does it have to be every single time? The 4th and 1, when you're on the 30-yard line going out, that was obvious to me. This can't happen. This guy wants to go for it even now, and they get stopped right here and basically give Green Bay a touchdown because all they have to do is go like 29 yards, and they score a touchdown here, and it's a different game. So you wouldn't have been in this situation maybe if you punt it and you let your defense play against a quarterback that has a tendency to throw it to the other team. Every single time? Why does it have to be every single time? Teddy Bruschi is not a fan of Dan Campbell and his aggressive ways. And I get it. I understand it. But again, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think that people, pundits, media, fans, whomever, are probably looking at this from the perspective of, man, they're so close. They can feel it. Like Super Bowl is right there. Don't F it up. You did it last year. Don't do it again. So before I bring in Rob Parker, Eric, what do you think about the 3rd and 1? And then what do you think about the 4th and 1? Both of those calls.
All right. I'm going to start by saying this. Jack Fox had 2 punts for a total of 92 yards in this game. So we did not go for it on 4th down 2 times. The only 4th down that I did not agree with, that I thought was reckless, was in the 3rd quarter from our own 31-yard line. I was screaming, no, 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 punt, 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 punt. And he didn't. And I've only ever seen him do that once. And I thought a much better way to do that play that I would not have been mad with going for it on 4th down is a fake punt. Put it in the hands of Jack Fox. Let him throw it to Vaki like they did in the 1st or 2nd game of the year. Do it that way. That way, fine. They don't know what's coming. When you put your offense out there, they know what's coming. They are very prepared for what you're about to do on 4th down. And just like you said, their play call was horrendous on that play. I did not like it at all. And that was the only one that I thought was reckless during the whole rest of the game. The rest of them, I thought it was 4th down money ball. If you remember in the preseason, I talked about Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are playing money ball with 4th down. Mm-hmm. And they are. And they're doing it. And now you're seeing other teams copy the Lions. And you even saw this weekend other teams with the same situation. So the Jets, they kick a field goal on 4th and 2 from the Miami 10 to take the lead 26-23 with 52 seconds remaining. The Dolphins get the ball back with 1 timeout and are able to drive down and get the game tying field goal, send it to overtime. Well, the Dolphins won in overtime. The Jets never got the ball back. And that's just a reminder that Dan Campbell made the right decision. And then last night, you see the Rams go for it on 4th and 5 at the Bills 35, up 35 or 38-35 instead of kicking the field goal and only being up by 6 points. So if they just kick the field goal there, well, what happens? Then it's a tie ball game and it goes to overtime. So everybody is starting to copy Dan Campbell. And I said preseason that this was going to happen. People are going to see that this money ball 4th down thing is working and other people are going to start copying it. And now everyone is doing it.
So, yeah, real quick on that. The Falcons went for it on 4th down right away last night, and I think the majority of their 4th down attempts. But, Riley, I want to get your opinion in just a second. But, John Desage, you said going for it on 4th down got us an extra possession that quarter. The quarter was over. It was literally 1 minute and like 30 seconds left. Here, let me go back to my notes. 1 minute, 34 seconds left in the 3rd quarter. So the quarter was over. We didn't get an extra possession by going for it we lost the ball. And yeah, we turned the ball over to the Packers. They scored immediately. So when you look at time of possession, the reason why the Packers' time of possession was so little is because we gave them amazing field position. So they just went down and scored. So I don't know who's putting this out there. Someone said it was Woodward or whatever. They're saying that we got an extra possession. The possessions were even. We had 11 possessions each. I don't know where we get an extra possession by going for it. That doesn't make any bit of sense to me. And I think whoever's saying that is completely wrong. I'm just saying. So Riley, what is your opinion on this? Going for it on 4th down in the 3rd quarter with 1:34 left, and then going for it on the 4th and inches to end the game.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. The play call at the end of the third quarter could have been better, right? I think that there's something to be said for the conversations behind closed doors that we're not all privy to. I think the most important thing is the consistency of the message that Dan Campbell sends to the players, and then the players, they maintain that trust. So imagine if in the fourth quarter, all of a sudden Dan Campbell changes it up. They're like, "Wait, coach, we thought we were going for this on fourth. You getting cold feet now?" So for Brewski to say he lacks the emotional control, I think it's the exact opposite. The easy thing to do would just be to punt, play it safe. But Campbell keeps himself numb to that and says, "Nope, I'm not going to change up what I told these guys we're going to do on Monday and on Tuesday." And people say it's like watching a Fast and Furious movie where there's this high speed chase and you're like, "Oh God, this is reckless. This is going to surely end in a crash." And then all of a sudden, what do? They drive the car through a building, through the window, and it's like, it was all under control the whole time. So people say like, "Oh man, he's reckless. It's going to cost him in the playoffs." It did last year, but you notice how they've won 12 of 13 games this year. So that means the players didn't show up and say, "Man, I don't know if I trust this guy coaching us." No, the players want the ball in their hand. You notice our defensive players aren't upset that he's going for it on fourth down, right? Because the message is consistent. What he says Monday at 11 a.m. at practice and then is the same thing he does Thursday at 8 p.m. during the game when the lights are on. That's why they trust him, right? So the play call could have been better at the end of the third quarter. But going for it, we're all on the edge of our seat. That's what we want. We want it to be exciting. We want it to be football. I just remember he did that last year against the Chargers. And I'm like, is he going to? Oh, yeah, he's going to. We got the first down, burn the clock, kick the field goal, and then LaFleur and Love and everyone on the sidelines like, well, damn, I guess game's over. That's coaching. That's elite coaching. You take the chance away from them. They have to sit and watch. And you did exactly to your players what you said you would do. And you think about the people that you love working with, even friends, people that you're willing to go to, do business with, is the people that do what they say they will do. So Dan Campbell is a phenomenal coach. Is it reckless? I don't feel it's reckless, but even if it is, I'll take it.
Well, I think he's changed the narrative on football as far as, how do you handle down and distance and to win a game. You just put it all up, all costs, right? Whatever you have to do, you have to do. That much I respect out of him, or respect from him, that he's going to do whatever he has to do to win a game. But I think going for it in your own territory at the 30-yard line is always going to be a reckless move, depending on what's going on in the game. You had a whole fourth quarter.
Yeah. Yep.
And matter of fact, wasn't it like 24-21 at that moment? Mm-hmm. I think it was.
We gave him the lead by doing that.
I think it was 24-21, and then they went up 28-24, right?
Another touchdown. Yep.
Yeah. So you don't give them that touchdown. You make them go the whole distance of the field by punting the ball with the best punter in the league. Who knows? You could have buried him, under the 5 and you get a safety, or, you get an interception off of Jordan Love. Who knows? Yeah. Our defense was able to do things, but you make them drive the whole field. You still got the whole fourth quarter. So if they drive the whole field and they still score, let's just say they take 7-8 minutes off the clock. You still have 7 or 8 minutes to play. And you can go do the same thing to them and just run the ball. We had no issues really moving the ball on offense. Yeah, Jared Goff had 2.24 seconds of time to throw or whatever it was in that game. He was under some pressure, but he was dialing it up. He was completing passes. He was finding the open receiver. We were able to move the ball. So I just feel like that's one I don't want to see come up in the playoffs. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to see that come up in the playoffs again, because right now you still have more time. And matter of fact, let's bring in this next bit of audio here that I wanted to play, which is Rob Parker from last week talking about Dan Campbell. I didn't have an opportunity to review this, but here we go.
I'll sneak out here at this point real quick, fellas. I'll sneak out.
Okay.
Everybody, love you guys. Love the show. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Appreciate you, Riley. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
So we'll bring in this audio. Let me get it set up real quick. So the Odd Couple podcast with Rob Parker and Kelvin Washington. Here we go. Oh, I'm not giving them applause. Someone else is. Here we go.
The Lions get it done. They win 34-31, a late field goal to ice the game. And, of course, Lions coach Dan Campbell's being talked about all day, and there's no way that we cannot address Dan Campbell either. And I'm going to say this right off the bat. Dan Campbell, for as much credit and people are all excited about him, I think he's a bad coach. And I think he's worse than Brandon Staley when he was with the Chargers, who got fired. And I'm going to tell you why. This is not being provocative or trying to change the game or having cojones or whatever. This is reckless. And the reason I say he's a bad coach and ultimately will wind up costing the Lions a chance at the elusive trip to the Super Bowl or even a chance to win it is because what he's doing is unnecessary and putting his team in harm's way. And it worked out last night. Thank God it wasn't college rules. Because when Jared Goff fell down, he would have been down for, right? That would have been it. He would have been down at that spot. And I'm just saying, you don't want to do that if you don't have to, going for it, 4th and 1 inside the 30. I read some stat where no team had done it in 25 years since 2000 had that even been done. And and again, you guys who I understand Lions fans, and you're one of them, you love the guy because you endured all the terrible years, okay? I get it. And you're like, oh, they're on the cusp. And this is the guy, he's fearless and this and that. But if you're really honest, Dan Campbell cost you a trip to the Super Bowl last year with the chicanery and all of that. And he's going to do it again. He hasn't learned his lesson. And until he gets burned, if you remember after the NFC Championship game last year, he told the team that he probably cost him a trip and he don't know if there's another trip. This is unnecessary. This is not Madden. This is NFL football with jobs and careers and legacies on the line. He can't keep doing this. Dan Campbell, I don't care what the results are, is a bad coach and worse than Brandon Staley. You know why? Brandon Staley didn't have a team that had a chance to win a Super Bowl. He was doing that nonsense, and it wound up costing him his job. But the Lions have a really good team and a chance to win. And the one weak spot is Dan Campbell.
Well, he did not mince any words. And I'm going to play the other audio too, but here's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to a couple of notes here. He says, bad coach, worse than Brandon Staley. And he followed that up with, because Brandon Staley didn't have a team that could win, right? A team that was on the cusp of winning a Super Bowl or heading to a Super Bowl or making a phenomenal playoff run, whatever. Okay. I don't know why you're comparing him to Brandon Staley. Because Brandon Staley went for it on 4th down a few times? I don't think there's a comparison. Point number 2. Why the hell do you mention college rules? What does that have anything to do with the NFL? It doesn't. If anything, that just speaks to all the uneducated Packers fans that thought that Jared Goff was down when he wasn't. It wasn't a kneel down. Well, why even mention this? And then he mentions
nuts with it. That's why.
Yeah. And then I also mentioned costing the Lions a Super Bowl last season. Now, this point, I can't agree with it, but I can give it a little bit of consideration because of what he did early in that game in the first half, going forward on that 4th down that did not work. But what I will say is there was way more than just one coaching decision that went wrong in the NFC Championship game that cost the Lions a trip to the Super Bowl. There was a Jahmyr Gibbs fumble. You could say that maybe one pass that went to Josh Reynolds should have been caught. The other one was a little bit outside. Tough catch. What else happened in that game?
Vildor face mask.
Yeah, the Vildor face mask thing. Yeah, look, that happens once in a generation. You're never going to see that play again in your lifetime.
Nope.
So weird crap happens. And when you get into a Super Bowl, you get into the playoffs, you need a little bit of luck. You need the ball to bounce just the right way a couple of times. The ball didn't bounce the right way at all for the Lions in the second half. So what Dan Campbell did on fourth down, did it possibly cost us a trip? Maybe. Should he have taken the points? Possibly. Would it have tied the game? You don't know. Because for every action, there's what? A reaction. So, you know, everything the Lions would have done early in that game, you don't know what the 49ers would have done on the backside of that to counteract it. So I can't agree with it there. Says jobs, careers, and legacies are on the line. Well, that's why Dan Campbell's doing what he's doing. Because he's trying to create a legacy in Detroit. He's trying to give something to the fans that we've never had before. He's trying to give us an experience and something that we can finally be proud about. So will I say that Dan Campbell's reckless? No. Do I think that he's got balls of steel? Yes, I do. Do I think that he makes way more better decisions than he does bad decisions? I do. Do I think that they need to tighten up some of these plays that they call in critical situation? Absolutely. But I don't really agree with this Parker dude. And I can't say I've ever even heard of him before until this hot mic, came across my desk and I'm like, who is this dude?
He's from the Free Press or the Detroit News, one of the two. And he's always been this way. He's always been this negative Nancy Lions suck writer. And I can't stand the negative media on the Lions all the time. And it was really getting to me last week, like really bad. And I'm so glad the Lions won. And it's so funny how on that play in the fourth quarter on the fourth down, when Jared Goff falls down and hands the ball to David Montgomery and he gets 7 yards. Needed 1, got 7. I looked at my buddy and said, holy crap, he almost fumbled the ball. He fell down. Was he down? And I'm like, no, he can't be because this is the NFL. And that was the first thing I said. And I get home and the internet is just blowing up. All these people with screenshots of all these plays during the game. And then they did the one of Jared Goff with his knee down. And they're like, he's down right there. That should be a dead ball foul. That should have been the Packers ball right there. And there were TikTok videos and YouTube videos. And I mean, hundreds of people, thousands of people saying that the Packers got robbed on that play. And I'm just like, you guys are absolute idiots. So every time that Jack Fox gets the ball hiked to him while he's on a knee and he holds the ball for the place kicker, that he's down right there by contact, that's a dead ball foul. It made no sense to me whatsoever. These guys, they had no clue what the rule book was. And you want to know what? It makes me happy. It makes me happy that they don't know football.
Well, they've been so blessed with just winning and oblivious to anything, right? They've been blessed with the refs giving them the benefit of the doubt. And, and let's be real here. That does happen in the NFL. The Terrion Arnold pass interference in that game, I'm sorry, that wasn't pass interference.
No.
I watched that play over and over and over from every angle that I could get. Could you technically call it pass interference because he had a hand on his back, but it really wasn't touching him? It wasn't moving him. He didn't impede with the ball. And then he put an arm between his arms to knock the ball away. That wasn't pass interference. That's just damn good coverage.
Yeah.
Now, if he would have taken a step back like a foot and didn't touch him and still interfered with the ball, would they have called pass interference? Probably. That back in the day, that's just sticky coverage. That doesn't get called. That doesn't get called right there.
I don't think that gets called in the playoffs, and I don't think that gets called in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't think it would either.
You watch, okay, if you go back and watch the Chiefs-Chargers game from last night, there was an almost identical play, and nothing got called.
I'm not surprised. So the second part of this audio in the Rob Parker meltdown here was his co-host, who happens to be a Lions fan. Here we go.
This has been the makeup of the team. This has been what they do. They go for it. They'll run the ball no matter what, when other teams won't. They'll push through injuries no matter what. This is who they are. Their mental makeup, they go for it. They don't care who's what. And we're not going to, we're up 20 on this bad team. We'll take their foot off the gas. They beat you by 40 or 50 points. This is what he does. And I'm okay with that as long as you get into the postseason and realize, okay, now I have to make adjustments because it's win or go home. And that's different. That's a different thing. We did what we did to get here. We'll do what we do, but we'll make adjustments as need be. That is a sign of a great coach. And if he wants to become a great coach, he will do that in the postseason as other coaches have done.
877-99 on Fox, 877-996-63.
All right, I'm not going to plug his show. I agree with the second guy, which I think his name is Calvin Washington, that Dan does need to have the wherewithal in the postseason to know that there is no week 16 or 17 or 18. It's go home. You can't make the mistake again. The one thing that I will say, which I know I say that all the time, but I say a lot of things, right? The thing that Dan does by performing some of these wild calls and going for it on fourth down in wild situations, he does change the game. And what I mean by that is he's changing what the other teams are able to do. He's changing possession time. If they do get it, the game didn't, the time didn't end in that possession for the Lions. It's now continued another couple of minutes. So he's really changing the outcome by going for it on some of these plays. And then he does kind of eliminate possession time later. Time, not possessions, but time. So I will say that. Last part of this call is, here we go.
You have no evidence that he's changed his stripes. What evidence do you have that come to postseason?
You gotta give me 5 weeks.
No, what evidence do you have? You have none. You're hoping, you're wishing, and you're praying, and you're saying last night was a random Thursday night? No, the division is on the line. Had the Packers won or Minnesota, they would have drawn, if they lost that game, drawn even with Minnesota. That was an important game. That wasn't a throwaway game. Where are you thinking how is that a random Thursday night
what I'm
throwaway
saying
game?
Is,
It ain't a
what
throwaway.
I'm saying is,
and had they lost,
season,
there would have been hell to pay, and you would have been screaming bloody murder last night, and you could sit there all day, and everybody in NFL America would say Dan Campbell is a bad coach. Had that backfired on him.
First of all, nobody would say he's a bad coach. You literally cannot say he's a bad coach. It literally does not make sense, does not add up. Nothing about Dan Campbell's a bad coach. Now, what you can say is all coaches have their issues. Some guys can't scheme up on offense enough. Some guys can't get their team to be disciplined and stop making penalties and mental errors. Every coach has their flaws, but you cannot ever say Dan Campbell's a bad coach. Nothing about his tenure has equated to bad coach.
Yes,
in fact, it's been
to me in the postseason when it was bad.
The postseason
last year
where
he
had
a chance.
A flaw. Last season where he had one game, you're acting as if he didn't win all these other games to get there. Let's not act like he did. All of a sudden, he's just been 0-6 in the postseason. Now, what I'm saying is,
well, I ended it there because, again, I kind of agree with Calvin, who's defending Dan, and he's saying that he needs to make that change in the postseason, right? He's got to identify that this is different. And I agree with all that, but I want to say this: what Dan is doing, he is changing the landscape of the NFL. The Lions are pushing the boundaries. They don't fear injuries. They find ways to win. The coaching style is fluid and dynamic, right? It's not stuck in the mud. They're going to do whatever they have to do from week to week to week to week. It's not, this is our plan for the year, and this is our only option for the year, and we're going to stick with it. Like we've seen in years past with coaches in the past where they go into a game plan and it's like, hey, this isn't working, but we're just going to continue to do it. Because maybe at some point it's going to work. No, scrap it, do something different. That's the difference with this team, that the Lions are able to stay fluid and dynamic throughout the entire season. For each opponent, they're finding a way and a method to win. I don't see many teams doing it like Dan and Brad are with the coaching staff that they have to the degree that they are being successful. Campbell doesn't coach with fear of losing. He coaches with the fear of not winning at all costs. And lastly, I feel like the Lions, they do run when other teams are going to pass and vice versa. And I think that is probably one of the bigger things to take away from this offense is it's like we're treating second down like it's a third down, or we're treating a first down like it's a third down. You never know what the Lions are going to do when Ben is in his bag. When Ben is being the mixologist that we know and love, you have no clue what this offense is going to do. And they are so loaded with weapons, you can't stop them even if you know what they're going to do. So all of that I love. Last audio, I caught this from watching the game this morning. Like I said, I got up at 3 and started watching some of the game. And when I heard Al Michaels say this, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, dude, are you serious right now? Listen to this.
Risky, of course. You give the ball to Jordan Love here.
This is after the third or the fourth down in the third quarter.
You can't question it when he does it and it works.
Yeah, thin line between a genius and a bum.
Huh. Al Michaels just said that there's a thin line between a genius and a bum. Talking about Dan Campbell when the Lions missed the 4th and go at the end of the third quarter. A thin line between a genius and a bum. Well, you best believe I'm going to be saving that audio. And when the Lions win the Super Bowl, I'm going to be playing it nonstop. What a bum he is. Good Lord. All right. We've heard it all. Maybe. Eric, you got something you want to add to all that real quick?
Sure. So this whole fourth down money ball thing with MCDC, imagine, if you will, you are a defensive lineman and you're on an opposing team to the Detroit Lions. And it's third down and you have to give everything you have left because you've been out there on first and second. Well, the Lions didn't substitute and they went quick to the line and you don't have a chance to sub out. Here comes third down. Well, once again, you don't have a chance to sub out again because you guys are out of timeouts and the Lions are going for it on fourth down. And you got to be out there again. And the Lions get the fourth down. And then you got to be out there again for first, second, and third down because the Lions are going right down the field, hurry up offense. Imagine being a defensive player. You never get a rest and stopping on third down just is not good enough. Even if you give it your all, it's not good enough. Just imagine being a player where your team does everything they can and it's just not enough to stop the Detroit Lions. And it's not enough.
Yeah.
How heartbreaking and backbreaking is that?
Good point by Art Isel. Hopefully I said your last name correctly, Art. But he says, now watch how MCDC draws offside on fourth down hard count. So I know exactly what Art's thinking here. Every team is thinking the Lions are going to go for it when they line up to go for it on fourth down, and we're not going to go for it, and they're going to jump, especially in a postseason situation where that if you get a delay a game or whatever, no big deal, you're going to punt it anyway. But what I would say is Jared Goff's hard count, not the best. Needs some work. Right? Need to see this guy really, going for it, and I think the quarterback can bob his head a little bit, but the center can't. If you look at some of the other quarterbacks in the NFL that do the hard count and fourth down really well, they're really good with it. Like acting wise, they're really trying to sell it. I don't know if Jared Goff is selling it. And we really haven't drawn a lot of guys off, a lot of teams off on fourth down. So I would say if that's going to be the plan, I want to see Jared Goff have a better fourth down, draw off, hard count, if you will. Here's what everyone else is saying. Ryan Clark on ESPN. He said that Campbell's style is a good approach for Dan Campbell. because this is the way Dan Campbell has coached this team for his entire career. He's always been a coach that keeps his foot on the gas pedal. I don't know that I agree with that. I think that this year Dan has the foot on the gas pedal. I think last year they took the foot off the gas pedal, and it kind of bit us a little bit in some close games. But he goes on to say the last night was different. Last night was one of those times where you kick the field goal. Nobody's going to say that you're wrong. Everybody says that the correct thing to do is to kick the field goal. Analytically, that is exactly what should happen, but that wasn't the feel he had. He wanted to go grab the win. He didn't want to play to lose, or he didn't want to play not to lose. And I think this team appreciates that. He doesn't care about what everybody else is going to say. He cares about what the locker room says. And I think that's a very good point. That this team is all in. They trust their coach. They're all bought in during the week. They know what's going to happen. And you know what? If some of the players felt like it was a bad idea, I guarantee you that Jared Goff and some of the other leaders on this offense would go up to Dan and say, Dan, I think we should dial it back just a little bit. And that would be a conversation that I think Dan would welcome, even though he's the head coach and the buck stops there. I think that there's a good enough relationship between his players and the coaching staff that they would agree to disagree and then still do what the coach wants them to do. But I don't think that that's ever going to happen because they trust and believe in what they're doing. Ryan Clark went on to say that it's the right decision for Dan Campbell. It's the wrong decision for everybody else. But for the Detroit Lions, who were a team that had nothing, an organization that was destitute, a place that we all thought about when we thought of them as 0-16, and you're so terrible that two of the greatest players at their positions retired early, and you got Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell has changed that. You've forgotten about that because all you think about is the way he coaches and the way they play for him. Great statement by Ryan Clark. I did not expect that from Ryan Clark. Dan Graziano said it was objectively a reckless decision, but he didn't do it out of a sense of recklessness. He had multiple good reasons for doing it, as he outlined, and his team has utter faith in him. It was the wrong thing. It was the wrong thing to do. It reduced their chances of winning the game statistically. There's no question. But the Lions are who they are, and they know who they are more than any other team. Another good point by Dan Graziano. Did not expect that from him. And then Cam Newton. You know, the Cam Newton that was, saying Jared Goff was also a civilian by the way that he was treating Jared Goff early in the season has somehow come around now that he's a part of ESPN. He said, I see this from a fan's perspective. I can appreciate the consistency that Coach Dan Campbell has been coaching with in his coaching career. As a player, if I was in that locker room, I also would have to say that I appreciate the consistency. Knowing if I was Jared Goff, it's 2nd and 10 or 3rd and 6 or 4th and 2, and you're past your 50-yard line, within reason, given the circumstances of the game, you are going for it. Sometimes coaches make emotional decisions in the moment that maybe aren't good. They planned on this. They said at practice that Dan told us this week in 4th and short situations, we are going for it every single time. This is planned and prepared, not just him willy-nilly making decisions in the moment. Again, did not expect that from Cam Newton, but he's spot on. And then we got Bart Scott, analyst and former NFL linebacker, on the 4th down Dan Gambles. He said the same thing that makes you laugh will make you cry. Attitude reflects leadership. You talk about the culture and identity of this team, its physicality, it's coming downhill, and it's in your face. Nobody is laughing now when you talk about biting kneecaps and getting up and getting knocked down. This team showed tremendous resilience, and they reflect the attitude of the city and the attitude of the head coach, who's been there during the lean times as a player and as a coach. So it looks like to me the large majority of people that know what the hell's going on understand that Dan Campbell is not reckless. He's doing things with purpose and intent. The team is prepared, and I think that's the most important thing to take out of all of this. They prepare for this. It's not Dan Campbell being willy-nilly, according to Cam Newton. So that was my final point today, Eric. Any final thoughts for you on Dan Gambles?
I love it. It's fourth down money ball. I'm positive this is something that came from Parcells and came from who's the coach there, the Denver Broncos, slipping my mind.
What are you talking about? The coach of the Broncos, Sean Payton?
Yeah, Sean Payton. So, it came from his former coaches, people he was around, Parcells. And I think that Dan drew upon what they taught him, and he took it and made it into something else. And I'm sure he's got, bean counters and number crunchers that are like, hey, in this situation, you should go for it on fourth down. This situation, the odds would say this, where most traditional coaches would look at that and say, nope, we're punting here. Nope, we're going to kick the field goal here. Odds say that we should kick the field goal. And he's not doing that anymore. I think he has his own black book or script that he's going off of, that he goes for fourth down. And I don't think emotion has anything to do with it. I think he's got someone upstairs talking into his ear, telling him when to do it and when not to do it. And I think he just knows when to do it now. And it's going to change the face of the NFL. You are going to see more and more and more people going for it on fourth down in non-traditional places.
Yeah, I believe it.
They're just not going to kick the field goal and give the other team 52 seconds to go down and tie the game and force overtime. It's just not going to happen as much.
All right, so to end the show today, we have C3 Mitts giveaway. So don't forget that it is hunting season, and it is also Christmas gift season. So if you are looking for great gifts, visit c3mitts.com today. Get your special hunter, their bow mitt, all right, crossbow mitt, rifle mitt, shotgun mitt, whatever. But they also have the multi-mitt. So if you like to go rock hunting, if you are a golfer, if you have an ATV or whatever that you like to use outside, all of these mitts have a purpose for you to keep your hands warm. So today, to end the show, the first person in the chat that it puts the name in of the player from the Minnesota Vikings that has a lot to say about the Lions and doesn't want anybody to talk about the Lions anymore is going to win their opportunity at a multi-mitt today.
Ooh.
So who is the player from the Minnesota Vikings that has a lot to say about the Detroit Lions? This was just yesterday. All right, so Peter Van Larhoven put it in there. He said Murphy, and that is the winner. So Peter Van Larhoven, please email me at mailbag@rockdon.com. Your details with your name, obviously your address, and I will send that to Better the Hunt Technologies, and then they will get your multi-mitts sent out this week. So they should be in the mail right away. So we'll do it again on Wednesday, and again on Friday. We'll be doing the C3 Mitts giveaways every Wednesday and Friday, or every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday through the end of the month here, through Christmas. So, all right, good show, Eric. We'll be back tomorrow with the Rise and Grind Morning Show at 8 a.m. That's all for today. Don't forget to also visit uperlights.com. They've got some special deals, I believe, going on now for Christmas.
Yep.
And
put something else up today.
There you go. And you can find them at uperlights.com. Here is their ad. Take care, Eric. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Every day, thousands of people are discovering Uper Lights, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from uperlights.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for Uper Lights with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit uperlights.com for all your UV flashlight needs with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from uperlights.com.